I met this guy in a Porsche. He gave me his number and we went on a date. When I got home, it was empty. I'm 26 and I'm a woman. I've been dating Derek, who is 27, for the past 3 years. Derek and I had a normal relationship. We had our fights and arguments, but we would always get back together. Recently, I did something that led to him disappearing from my life without any actual issue. I didn't know that going out on I never thought that going on a date with a rich guy would be such a big deal for Derek that he would disappear on me. I never expected that one mistake would lead to the end of our relationship. Derek's reaction took me by surprise. I'm still shocked by the way Derek reacted to all of this. To give you some context, I met Derek while I was working as a model on one of the advertisement campaigns for a big brand. He was one of the models, but something about him made me curious to get to know him. We ended up striking up a conversation during the break and discovered we had a lot in common outside of modeling. Our shared interest sparked a connection that eventually led to us exchanging numbers. Our relationship had been filled with laughter, adventures, and a deep emotional connection that I never expected to find due to my erratic work hours. Derek has become my best friend and partner in crime. We ended up chatting during the break and found out we had a lot in common outside of modeling. Our shared interest sparked a connection that eventually led to us exchanging numbers. Our friendship quickly blossomed into something more, and we soon started dating. Our relationship had been filled with laughter, adventures, and a deep emotional connection that I never expected to find due to my erratic work hours. Derek has become my best friend and partner in crime. I couldn't be happier. Our relationship has taught me the importance of taking chances and being open to unexpected connections. Derek has shown me a love that goes beyond the superficial. I'm grateful for the genuine bond we share. We were both models, so we didn't have a regular paycheck. We had to rely on getting as many projects as possible to be able to afford all the bills and everything we didn't have. We didn't have an issue with it because we were both successful models. We had plenty of projects on the go at the time, but things changed drastically after the pandemic hit. We were both struggling to keep up with the expenses, so we decided to move in together to help share the financial burden. Initially, it was more like living with a roommate. We hardly interfered in each other's business. We were able to keep up with the expenses and the limited savings that we had, but very soon we started having petty fights about who washes the dishes, who cooks food, etc. I realized that Derek was only a good face and did not like participating in any of the house chores. I also hated the way he managed his money. He did not have a concept of saving money for emergencies or having some money stashed away for bad times. I found it frustrating to constantly pick up after him and cover for his lack of responsibility. Eventually, I had to have a conversation with him about our expectations and boundaries. When it came to sharing responsibilities and managing finances, I told him we needed to find a better way to split things up. He did agree to change his ways and make sure he takes up his share of responsibilities. I was satisfied and happy, thinking maybe he wasn't aware of how to coexist with another person. I was hoping to see some changes in his habits and see the positive impact of our conversation. Unfortunately, it became clear that our financial values and priorities were too different for us to continue living together harmoniously. We had different priorities, so it was difficult to live together harmoniously. I was feeling anxious and overwhelmed with the amount of never-ending tasks around the house. Derek wasn't the kind of person from whom I could expect any kind of help or responsibility to do household chores. It became increasingly apparent that our living situation was not sustainable due to our differing financial values and priorities, which caused constant tension. I realized that to maintain my own well-being I needed to find a new living arrangement that aligned better with my needs and expectations. I knew that I just had to wait until this pandemic was over and everything was back to normal so that I could then ask Derek to leave. I knew in my head that this relationship was over from my end and I just had to wait for the right moment to break the news to Derek. I knew I had to focus on my own mental health and happiness when making this decision, even if it meant having difficult conversations with Derek about our future living arrangements. It was clear that there was a cold and unsaid uneasiness between us. I knew that delaying the inevitable conversation was only prolonging both of our suffering, but I also needed to ensure that I was ready to handle the aftermath of ending the relationship. I needed to gather my courage and have an honest discussion with Derek about moving forward separately. With the pandemic coming to an end and the world slowly getting back to normal, the industry was opening to resume work. I had an audition for a role in one of the television series that was going to be. It was a big deal because it would mean I'd have a lot of money, which would help with my finances, and I'd probably be able to move out and not live with Derek any longer. I made sure I was well prepared and dressed appropriately for my audition. I didn't tell Derek because I didn't want to have another argument over petty things. I was grateful that he was still sleeping when I left the house. I didn't want to have to deal with him as I walked out, so I was glad that he was still out partying. I felt relieved that I wouldn't have to face Derek's negativity before my big moment. I knew that focusing on my performance was crucial and that I had to avoid any unnecessary stress. I knew that stress was going to be a big factor in this. I arrived at the audition feeling confident and ready to showcase my talent. Walking into the audition room, I felt a sense of empowerment, knowing that I had taken control of my own happiness and success. After the first round, we were asked to wait for the result of the shortlisted candidates. I could see that there were a lot of people who had applied for various roles. I got chatting to one of the guys auditioning for the main role. His name was Darius and he was pretty and would be perfect for the main role if that's what they were looking for. He kept telling me that the audition was just a formality as he already knew that the main part was his. I wondered where he got all that confidence from, or maybe he was just bluffing to make sure that he lessens the competition. He was spreading these false rumors to help him get the part. I'd finished the look test and had to wait another 2 hours for the next round. We were asked to go for lunch and come back after 2 hours. I decided to go to a nearby cafe and wait there. As I was walking, Darius, who I'd been talking to earlier, asked me if I wanted to join him for lunch since I had nothing better to do. I said, why not? It'd be better to pass these 2 hours talking to someone instead of just sipping a coffee all by myself. He asked me to wait at the main entrance as he had to get his car from the parking lot. It was more than 10 minutes and I was still waiting for him to get his car out. There was a Porsche that kept honking and I tried to make way for it. I was about to lose it when the window rolled and Darius asked me to get in. I was surprised he was driving a Porsche. I quickly got inside and we drove to a fancy restaurant for lunch. We spoke about various topics during lunch. Darius told me about his family history and how he was related to the makers of the series. He mentioned how proud he was of his heritage and the accomplishments of his ancestors. It was interesting to see how much of a snob he was. It seemed like he was showing off that he came from a privileged family and didn't have to worry about anything in life. I tried to keep up the pretense of being interested in him to use it to my advantage, but deep down I couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy towards his seemingly perfect life, despite my envy. That maintaining a positive relationship with Darius could potentially benefit me in the future. We came back for the next round of auditions after 2 hours. I got his number because he said he could get me a good part in the series because he liked me. He asked me if I was single and I said I wasn't seeing anyone right now. Obviously there was no way I was going to mention that I was seeing someone else. Derek, I'd been meaning to end things with him as soon as I got a decent project to work on. He asked me if I'd be up for going out on a date with him this evening after the auditions. I figured why not? I could just make an excuse, telling Derek that the auditions went on for a long time. I didn't owe him an explanation. As we chatted more, I found myself genuinely interested in getting to know him better. As we got to know each other better, I realized he was a nice guy. Despite his upbringing, he was approachable and easy to talk to. After the auditions, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed our conversation and felt a connection forming. I decided to go for it and agreed to the date. I was excited to see where things could go. I felt optimistic about the potential for a meaningful connection with Derek. I was excited to open myself up to new possibilities and try something new. Darius took me to a Michelin-starred restaurant for dinner. I knew it would be difficult to get a last-minute reservation at such a restaurant, and we were seated in the private section with a view of the entire city. I think I've made a great choice. My day couldn't have been better. I'm glad I made the right decision. It could change my life forever. Darius is not only loaded, but he's also interested in me. I can use that to my advantage. The night took a romantic turn as Darius became more interested in getting to know me. I want him to see the best version of me. I wanted to make sure I came across as my best self so that he'd be blown away and start dating me right away. I was excited at the thought of potentially starting a relationship with someone as rich and handsome as Darius. I knew this could be the beginning of something special. I wanted to make a lasting impression on him and show him all the qualities that make me unique. I was excited about the potential for a new beginning. I was ready to seize the opportunity and see where things could go with Darius. I knew I had to balance being interested and playing hard to keep him hooked. Before long, the heat turned on and we ended up kissing passionately. I knew I had to stop before it ended in a one-night stand. I stopped and asked him if we should take it slow. I made sure he dropped me a little. I left the apartment as I didn't want to run into Derek. I kissed Darius goodbye and told him we'd talk soon. I walked towards the apartment and saw that the lights were out. There was no way Derek would have slept so early. I unlocked the apartment and switched on the lights. The house was empty. I couldn't believe we'd been robbed, especially in a locked house. I was pretty sure I'd unlocked the door. I'd just locked up, so there was no way everything would be missing if the house hadn't been broken into. I felt sick. Not only had I lost my valuables, but my sense of security had been shattered. I called the police to report the burglary and started checking to see how much damage had been done. I looked in every room to make sure it wasn't a prank. Even if it was, there was no way they could have moved all the furniture. I also had to move all the other stuff into any room and make it look like a robbery. I started calling Derek to let him know that the house was completely empty. He kept declining my calls, which made me even more frustrated than I already was. I knew that he was irresponsible, but he should at least pick my calls to see if it was something urgent. I was too stressed out, so I decided to cool myself down by splashing cold water on my face. I saw a note stuck on the bathroom mirror in Derek's handwriting. It said, "Hope you had fun today. See you never again." I couldn't believe what I was reading. I kept pinching myself to wake up from this horrible dream. Unfortunately, it wasn't working. It was happening in real time. My heart sank as I realized Derek had left me without any explanation. The note on the mirror was a cruel reminder of his cowardice. I soon figured out that Derek was the one who'd moved everything out of the house. It wasn't a robbery, as I'd first thought. He'd clearly left me feeling hurt and confused. I knew I had to confront the situation head-on and figure out what had gone wrong in our relationship for him to take such drastic steps without even a discussion. Derek had emptied the entire house, not even leaving a single rug of cloth or a cup in the kitchen. I was sitting on the floor with the note in my hand. I was too shocked to even think straight. My day had started out well, and everything was going great. In fact, it was going really well until I came home. I was left with no clothes, nothing to cook with, nothing to sleep on, and no toiletries. It was so late at night that there wasn't much I could do except try to call Derek and ask him what on earth had happened and why he did this. What was the point of all of this? I could even make up a scenario where it must have owed money to people and there's a scheme. That would explain everything. I still don't understand the note he left. I was the one taking care of most of the finances in this house, so why would he want to get rid of me? I was the one who was fed up with him and his spending habits. I need to figure it out. I need to find out what his note meant and why he would leave me in this situation. Maybe he thought I was the one causing financial issues and wanted to start fresh without me. I guess I'll have to wait until he decides to come back and explain himself. It's frustrating not knowing the full story, but maybe it's for the best if he's out of my life for good. Maybe he felt guilty about his spending habits and wanted to protect you from any financial burden. Maybe he thought that by leaving, he was giving you the freedom to live your life without him holding you back. I tried sleeping, but as you know, it's impossible to sleep on a cold and hard floor. I decided to write a post that would help me kill time and also help me understand how things changed so drastically. I was the one who wanted to leave Derek and go my separate way, but before I could even get to the point of kicking Derek out, he emptied the house by leaving a note that didn't give me any context. I'm hoping that anyone who has read my story so far has a clue as to what happened and why I'm unable to make sense of it all. It sounds crazy. Why would a guy who literally had to do nothing around the house and pile on his girlfriend for everything just up and leave? I would appreciate it if anyone has an idea about what could have gotten into Derek. I'm trying to figure out why he left without an explanation. The note he left doesn't really give much context. I've been trying to understand what could have triggered this sudden departure. It's hard to understand why someone would leave without any explanation, especially after being so dependent on their partner. I'm hoping to get a few explanations from you guys regarding the actions of Derek and some logical reasoning. Please also suggest what I should do next. Thanks for reading so far. I'd appreciate your suggestions and responses. Hello everyone. I've had a better understanding of what happened after I was left with an empty house without an explanation by Derek. The next few days were spent trying to get in touch with Derek to find out what led to his sudden disappearance. I tried to get hold of Derek several times, but he didn't answer. I was really frustrated and confused about why he'd suddenly disappeared without saying anything. I felt like something serious must have happened for him to cut off all communication so abruptly. Why did he have to take off with all the stuff in the house? It was established that he was not in trouble and there was no logical explanation for his disappearance as the days went by. I was really worried about Derek's well-being. The feeling that something was wrong only grew stronger. I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to his disappearance than met the eye. I decided to reach out to mutual friends in hopes of gaining any insight into his sudden vanishing act. However, none of them had heard from Derek either, leaving me even more puzzled and concerned. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a deeper reason behind his sudden disappearance. I was determined to find out what really happened, despite trying to work out what had happened to Derek. I kept coming up against dead ends, but that only made me more determined to find out the truth. My second option was Darius, who picked up my call and started flirting with me. I didn't want to seem desperate for the role, but I tried to show him that I was interested without making it obvious. Darius asked if I'd like to meet up so he could get to know me better. I was really happy about that. I knew Darius might be able to help me out of this mess I'm in. He said he'd pick me up in the morning and asked me to keep he said he had the whole day free because he was planning something big and wanted to make sure that I was completely available and present to enjoy those moments as he wanted to spend as much time with me as he could. I told him that of course I would be available and that I was keen on getting to know him better. After talking to him, I quickly ordered a dress suitable for going out tomorrow with Darius. He picked me up at 7, it was 30 in the morning when he told me it was going to be a really long day. I was excited and thought it might lead to something more than friendship. I was praying for it to be more than friendship. We drove to a cabin in the woods, which was quite cozy. It was a really lovely day. We spent the whole time getting to know each other and sharing childhood stories. We even went hunting and set up a camp by the lake. It was the most romantic date I've had in a long time. When we were alone in the forest, things got a bit intense. There was a real spark between us. I was pretty sure I'd got his attention and that he'd want to go out with me properly soon. It was almost midnight when he dropped me home. I would have invited him in if I'd had the furniture at home, but I didn't. I told him I'd be moving out soon and the place was a mess, so I'd like him to come back when it was a bit more presentable. He said there was no rush and that I could take my time until I felt it was safe to call it home. He said he'd wait patiently and not expect too much. I thanked him for his understanding, kissed him goodbye, and started walking. I was trying to unlock the door, but it kept saying the password was incorrect. I pulled out my phone to double-check and see if I could get it unlocked using the app. When I pulled out my phone, I could see calls from my landlord that I missed due to poor service in the forest. She left a message saying that since we had broken the lease without prior notice, she was going to have to withhold the deposit and make it difficult for us to find another house on lease. I didn't understand what she meant by breaking the lease without prior notice. I was about to call her to tell her that it might be all a misunderstanding, but it was past midnight, so I would have to wait until tomorrow to clear up any miscommunication that had happened, which led to her thinking that the lease was cancelled. I didn't have anywhere to spend the night, so I decided to stay at a hotel for I called my landlord the next morning. She said she was upset with me for handling the situation the way I did. She said if I wasn't happy with the place, I should have told her, not let my boyfriend call her and be abusive. We were leaving the house, so we should have told her. It was wrong of us to do it without letting her know. I tried to explain to her that I was no longer with my boyfriend and that he was doing this out of spite. She told me that she would have believed me if I had at least had my clothes in. The house is empty, which makes me look like a liar. I told her there was something I could do to get the house back since I had nowhere else to go, but she said she'd already found a new tenant who would be moving in tomorrow and there was nothing she could do. I thanked her for understanding. I thanked her for understanding my situation and not leaving me bad reviews as a tenant, so that I could at least find another house soon. I asked if she could give me some time to find a new place, but she said the new tenant was already scheduled to move in today, so there was nothing she could do. I left feeling grateful for her understanding but also worried about finding a new home on such short notice. I was surprised to find out that I didn't get any part in the series. I had been in constant touch with Darius and he never let me know that I might not get any role. I kept asking him about I asked for details of the next rounds, but he told me not to worry as he would take care of it. One of my friends, who had also auditioned, called to tell me she'd got a peripheral role. She was sure I'd be one of the main characters and wanted to know what. I told her I didn't get the part and she started laughing. She said she'd keep it a secret if I didn't want to reveal it yet. I didn't understand why she was so sure I got one of the main roles. She told me to stop acting as she already knew. I knew this series was being directed by one of Derek's close friends, so I was pretty sure I'd be in it. I also knew this friend she was talking about. She laughed and said I could keep denying it if I wanted, but she already knew that Darius was going to play the main lead. Derek was the second lead of the series. I was pretty blown away. I had no idea that Darius was Derek's friend. Could that be why Darius approached me in the first place and kept toying with me? It seems like he intentionally kept me busy so that Derek could execute his plans of emptying the house and calling my landlord. They were just messing with me, and I was too naive to see it. As I processed this new information, I felt a mix of surprise and anger at their elaborate prank. It was clear that they had been testing me all this while. There was no spark between me and Darius. I was genuinely surprised and annoyed at how easily I had been fooled. It was a harsh lesson in the importance of being more cautious in the future. I kept replaying the day of the audition in my head to understand what went wrong until we had lunch. Darius really wanted to give me the part, but when I told him I was single at the time, and that's when things changed. Apparently, he called Derek and told him that his girlfriend, whom he had literally begged his friend to get the part for, was about to ditch him and flirt with his friend. That's when they decided to keep me busy and saw that they could make sure that I would get. I was pretty shocked when I got home. I had no idea what had been going on behind my back. When I finally arrived home, I was blindsided by the betrayal and deception that had taken place. It was a painful realization that those closest to me had orchestrated such a hurtful situation. I was angry, sad, and disbelieving as I processed the situation. It was a harsh reminder that not everyone has your best interests at heart, even those you trust the most. Within a week, they announced the new series with the entire cast. They had a grand event to introduce the new faces playing each character. I sat in my new, cramped apartment, watching it and wondering to myself that I could have been one of the main leads. If I hadn't flirted with Darius and told him about Derek, things would have been completely different. I don't blame myself for hiding the fact that I was single though. I was planning to leave Derek once I had a stable income. There was no love left between us and we were always bickering. I wanted to get out of it before it became toxic. I still don't understand what I did so wrong for both these guys to ruin my life and career. Derek was testing me by not letting me know about. I don't know if it was worth Darius's time and money. I really can't make anything of what he did. He was a coward to not even try and confront me after everything that he did as a marketing strategy. They released a short story to get the audience hooked to the show. I couldn't believe that they released a short story about me flirting with Darius. They used my original name, so everyone in the industry knew it was about me. I guess that's why no one wanted to work with me anymore. The girls gave me dirty looks and told me to stay away from their boyfriends and husbands. I was under the impression that I was here just to steal their men, as if I had nothing better to do in life. There was a lot of tension on set and I could feel the walls closing in on me. I was removed from the projects that I was previously a part of. I felt unfairly judged and ostracized, which led to a significant decline in opportunities for collaboration. Rumors and gossip spread like wildfire, tarnishing my reputation in the industry despite my best efforts to prove myself. The negative perception persisted, making it increasingly difficult to rebuild my professional relationships. The situation became so toxic that I ultimately had to. You might want to think about seeking opportunities outside of the industry altogether. I tried working as a barista and as a waiter, but it was such a difficult job. I was being catcalled and I could not take the dirty stares from men. There was no applause or recognition for the work I did. I had to put in 8 to 10 hours of intense work. I was working long hours for very little pay. I was putting in more effort than I did when I was a model, but I was still getting yelled at and there were always complaints from customers as I would not let them grab me inappropriately. I was losing hope and saw that there was little I could do. I just had to endure it. Until things cooled off enough for me to start working again in the glam industry, I knew it was going to be tough, but not impossible. I just had to keep being optimistic and fight my way through to see the light at the end. I kept motivating myself as there was nothing much I could do. A few weeks later, I started sharing my portfolio, but I kept getting rejected because no one wanted to work with Darius and his family. I had to give up on my modeling and acting career, thanks to Derek and his friend Darius, who used his family connections to make sure I wasn't shortlisted. I was furious at both of them for ruining my life. I didn't know what to do next. I'd been modeling since I was 18, and that was my life. I knew that one mistake had ruined my reputation and all the hard work I had put in to get here. It was so unfair that just because someone is powerful, they are able to crush me. I had tried to use an influential person to climb up in my career, and everybody does that. It wasn't a crime. I just got caught up with the wrong person. But Derek and his friend aren't saints. I'm sure they've done unethical things to get where they are. It's frustrating how one mistake can overshadow all the hard work and effort put in. It's a harsh reality that sometimes power and influence can be used against us unfairly. But it's important to remember that everyone makes mistakes and nobody is perfect, not even those who seem untouchable. I couldn't believe how quickly my whole world came crashing down because of one error. It was a harsh reminder of the cutthroat nature of the industry where power and influence can make or break a person's career. In times like these, it's crucial to stay resilient. It's important to be resilient and learn from our mistakes so we can come back stronger despite the setbacks. We need to keep pushing forward and not let one error define our future success. Thank you all for being a part of my journey. I know I might not have made the best choices in my life, but I deserve a decent life without being subjected to judgment for flirting with a guy to progress in my career. It wasn't like I slept with him to get. I'm sure that if Derek were in my position, he'd take advantage of the fact that someone could get him a role in a show. I still don't accept that I did something wrong to get a role. The only thing I did wrong was not telling Derek how I was feeling about living apart. Otherwise, I tried everything I could to advance my career and get out of all the bad relationships. I believe that opportunities should be earned through hard work and talent, not through personal connections. It's important to maintain professionalism and integrity in all aspects of life, including career advancement. Thank you all for being supportive and understanding. I'm not going to give up just because of 2 people who have treated me badly. I will pick up my life and show them that I don't need connections or influence to make it big. Thank you again for the courage that you guys give me.